This is the Big Stories Podcast, where we tell the amazing and inspiring stories from across the Big 12 Conference.
Welcome back to Big Stories. I'm your host, Cleon Wall. We are back from the holiday break, and it's time to get back to the biggest storylines in the Big 12, so let's dive in.
Big Stories' 5 biggest storylines. Number 5.
The Big 12 continues to dominate on the basketball court. 6 Big 12 teams are in the AP Top 25, including Arizona at number 1 and UCF at number 25 after they beat Kansas in Orlando. That game was one of my more fascinating games coming into week number 1. TCU is also receiving votes after beating Baylor and tallying nice wins in the non-conference season. So I wanted to chat with Jamie Plunkett of Horned Frog Blitz and the Frogs Insider Pod to find out more about this dangerous team. When you look at the Big 12 basketball standings, you hyper-focus on all of the ranked teams like Arizona, Iowa State, but the reason this is one of the best conferences in college basketball is because you have teams that are not in the top 25 that you don't want to play either at home or on the road, and they are just really tough. And I'm putting TCU in that mix. And then right before we started recording, I saw a video from Jamie Dixon talking about how his Horned Frogs are a good, different team right now and that they have to sustain their success. What makes them a good, different team right now?
Well, I think when you look at the construction of this roster compared to the last few years where TCU's missed the tournament, hasn't really been that competitive in the Big 12, is they've got guys that are capable shooters first, that they've started to teach how to play defense and how to rebound. Jamie Dixon is an incredible defensive coach. He's an incredible rebounding coach. And I think that with the way they've built this roster, they've allowed him to be a teacher again, rather than bringing in guys who are already good on defense and then teaching them how to shoot, which maybe isn't the strength of this coaching staff, and really is a challenging thing to do at the collegiate level when you're in a league like the Big 12. So I really liked what they did this offseason to go and get some three-point shooters. They obviously brought in Brock Harding, the point guard from Iowa, who's had a really good first 14 games for the Frogs. Jaden Pierre is a veteran guy from Providence that they brought in. And those two guards have stepped into big leadership roles. I think the biggest thing for me, though, for this TCU team is just defensively, as individual defenders, they are all bought in. They all came in as shooters. They all came in as offense-first guys, and they have converted to being defensive-minded players. And we saw that in the win against Baylor. We saw that in the win over Florida, the defending national champs. And we've seen that at other times in close losses this year to Michigan and Notre Dame. This is a team that is bought in on the defensive side of the court, and that's going to be critical moving forward in Big 12 play as TCU wants to continue to be competitive.
Sophomore forward David Punch is the team's leading scorer at 14 points a game. He's also the team's leading rebounder at 8 rebounds a game. The next 3 leading scorers are averaging around 10 to 11 points a game. Who is going to take that winning shot if the game's on the line? Which one of those Frogs is going to take the game-winning shot?
Probably David Punch. They're going to want to get it down low to him and let him go to work in the paint. I think Micah Robinson is another really good option. He's a guy that comes off the bench. He's kind of TCU's sixth man. He's got 2 double-doubles off the bench for TCU this year, including that win over Baylor on Saturday. He's a guy with a kind of an unconventional three-point shot, really kind of launches it from the side, but knocks down a good number of those shots. And so if you're looking for 2 guys that TCU can go to in a clutch moment, it's those 2 sophomores, Micah Robinson and David Punch.
You mentioned some of the games that the Frogs have played in the non-conference season. You played Michigan, loss, but a close loss. Wisconsin, win. Florida, win. Notre Dame, loss. How did those games make this team into the team they are right now? Like we talked about, that good, different team that they are right now.
I think that team in those 4 games specifically learned what it takes to win late in ball games. You know, this is a team that has 6 new guys, new faces on it, with 6 returners. And so they're still getting to know each other a little bit. This is a team that lost its starting center to an ACL injury 7 minutes into the season. And so they had to adjust their front court rotations a little bit, and they're still kind of doing that on the fly here. And so learning how to win late in ball games, what does it mean to execute in the final 4 minutes? What does it mean to make clutch free throws? What does it mean to stay locked in defensively? And so they went through some of those trials and those wins and losses. I think we saw the highest of the highs in those Florida and Wisconsin wins against two of the bigger, better rebounding teams in the country. And then you saw some of the developmental struggles there in the close loss to Michigan, which TCU really came away from that loss feeling like they let that one get away. And if you're looking at a game against Michigan and feeling like you let it get away, I think you're in pretty good shape there with what the Wolverines are doing this year. So they're learning to win late. We saw that in the Baylor game. We saw that in some of their later non-conference games to close out that part of the schedule as well. They didn't allow Baylor to score a basket in the final 3 minutes and 23 seconds of the game. They made free throws late, right? And it's just those kinds of things that create winning opportunities late in ball games. And when we're seeing TCU start to grow into that a little bit.
Coming in at number 3 in the AP poll is Iowa State. Now, I've been surprised with the Cyclones so far this season. They've dominated a lot of teams, but I don't follow this team as closely as other people do. So I wanted to talk with the BELEAV in Iowa State podcaster, Tyler Carter, about the Clones cruising into the first full week of the conference season. Tyler, early week overreaction. Why no first place votes for Iowa State in the top 25? Come on, voters. Iowa State needed to be considered, right? I mean, come on, Tyler, what do you think?
Yeah, be considered at number one. I don't know. I think they're falling in love with Michigan and Arizona. Arizona, rightly so. Michigan, I mean, like you look at Michigan's schedule, and they don't really play anybody with a pulse until like I think January 27th when they play at Michigan State. So I think it's just because they're waiting to see, because I know a lot of people were enamored with the Purdue win, but if we can do it again and go on the road, because we got Baylor on Wednesday, so that's going to be a test for us, and then in a few weeks we're at Allen Fieldhouse at KU. So one of the things that we've been talking about on the BELEAV in Iowa State podcast is um, these are the type of game, like winning at Allen Fieldhouse and places like that and winning at Baylor. These are the type of games that you win if you want to be considered as a Big 12 champion.
You know, I say that, but I think there'd be like 300 other teams out there who'd say, yeah, I'd like to be number 3 in the nation right now.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. But you mentioned Cyclones. They get back-to-back victories earlier in their non-conference season over Purdue and Iowa. Impressive. They've hammered every other team since. 3 of the 4 top scorers on the team were all on the team last year, including Milan Mocilovic, if I got his name right there. And you can correct me on that, but what I want to know, Tyler, is what has gotten into this team? Because it seems like these guys just improved from one year to the next.
Oh, yeah, so how to say it is Momcilovic. Milan Momcilovic.
Thank you for correcting me on that. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I need the correction on stuff like that.
Yeah, no problem. I just think that, like, I think from a standpoint, Joshua Jefferson, he's become more of a complete player. Like in the last game on West Virginia, he had a triple double. So he's more willing to distribute the ball. He's sort of like our point forward. So being able to not just score, but being able to affect the game in all facets. And then Milan Momcilovic, one of the things that TJ Otzelberger wanted him to do was for him to hunt shots. And you see he's shooting an insane 56% from 3. And I heard this crazy stat that even if he were to miss 40 shots in a row, he'd still be shooting over 40%. So he has been red hot, and he actually went to a sports psychologist this summer to help him with his like focus, because there were games where he used to be really hot and then he used to be just extremely cold. And apparently one of his words was jelly bean. So every time, like, it's like one of those words like to keep him going and to keep him like focused. And he's playing with the highest confidence in the world. And then Taman Lipsey, obviously he was hurt a little bit, but he came back and had a strong showing in the Purdue game and in the Iowa game. So Taman is Taman. He's solid. And Killian Torrey, the freshman, has just been an absolute revelation. Obviously, he looked like a freshman in this first game for like the first time this year. But Killian Torrey has been a revelation with his defense and him being able to get some buckets.
You mentioned Torrey, also a fellow freshman, Jamarian Bateman. I think
Yes.
if I have that name right,
Yes.
they're getting quite a bit of playing time. Kind of give us an idea. You talked about how Killian, how he's really helped out on the defensive side. Give us an idea for both of these guys, how they're able to fit into this guard rotation, because you did mention Taman Lipsey, and he's a great point guard. So how are these guys fitting in with the other guys that are around them?
So when Taman was hurt in the Vegas tournament, it sort of forced them to step in and get playing time. I'll say, at least with Torrey and Bateman getting into those rotations, I think unlike last year, Iowa State has a lot more depth this year. So the second team is not really much of a far off. Like, you knew when the second team came in, you're like, okay, we can get this lead. We can, decrease the lead that they have. But with this, they can keep up the intensity and still get baskets. And with Bateman is a good defensive guy, but he's also getting confidence, and he had hit 2 big threes in Friday's game against West Virginia at home.
The rest of the Big 12 top 25 teams include Houston, BYU, Texas Tech, and Kansas.
Number 4.
Huge upsets in Big 12 women's basketball. 3 undefeated teams went down: Iowa State, TCU, and Arizona State. They all lost. That leaves Texas Tech as the only undefeated team in the Big 12 coming into this week. The Red Raiders sit at number 17 in this week's AP Top 25 poll. It's kind of a bummer that Iowa State and TCU lost ground in the AP poll, and any goodwill that ASU built up to this point, being undefeated, is lost after one loss to BYU. I think in the long run, this will be healthy for Big 12 women's basketball, as it shows this league is tougher than just the teams at the top. Tech, TCU, Iowa State, and Baylor will probably stay in and around the top 25 the rest of the season because they're going to rack up some more wins. There is a lot of season left, and I expect them to win a lot of games. But you need a good upper middle class and not just a top-heavy conference. A loss or two not only helps those teams to get better, but it also helps teams like West Virginia, Arizona State, Utah, and BYU to improve their resumes as they hope to get into the NCAA tournament. None of the top teams in the conference may be as powerful as UConn, Texas, or South Carolina, but every team in the conference wants to make the NCAA tournament just because they want to be given a chance. The more teams that get in, the more chances are provided. So here's hoping that the women's side of the conference will be just as tough as the men's side of the conference.
Number 3.
The transfer portal, it giveth and it taketh. The Big 12 or any power conference is too big to talk about every and all players who are moving in and out of the conference. We might cover more of the bigger name players on the move in episodes to come, but here are some of the observations on my part. I kind of wish Brendan Sorsby was staying at Cincinnati, but we will see if he can lead Texas Tech to a second Big 12 title. Speaking of Tech, the Red Raiders are getting a lot of guys early in the portal. Their loss in the college football playoff doesn't seem to be hurting them at all. Money could have something to do with that, but that's part of the game now. It still has to be the right fit, and lots of guys feel Tech is the right fit for them, along with any money they might be receiving. Oklahoma State is turning into North Texas North. New head coach Eric Morris has 11 of his former players at North Texas joining him in Stillwater, including QB Drew Mestemaker and running back Caleb Hawkins. As I mentioned in a previous podcast, I'm bummed that Rocco Beck isn't sticking around to QB Iowa State, but I totally get why he decided to follow Matt Campbell to Penn State. Speaking of the Cyclones coach and signal caller, I asked Tyler Carter about the future of Iowa State football and what he'll remember most about this past season. Tyler, is this season going to be remembered as the season that could have been? So many Cyclones were hurt this season, and now Matt Campbell is your former head coach and Rocco Beck is your former QB. So is this the season of, oh man, what might have been?
Yes, it is. This is definitely going to be one of the many seasons in Iowa State football where it's like, man, it's sort of I wouldn't say it's like 2021 because with 2021 we had a lot of experience coming back, and that team should have won 11 games. This team sort of got it taken away from them because there were a lot of it. We got decimated by injuries. Two of our top corners, we were 5-0, being on top of the world after beating Arizona, and then two of our top corners go out with torn ACLs, and it's just like, yeah. Because like I just look at back at a lot of these games, like you think about the Cincinnati game in the second half, where if we capitalized on a few of those drives, we win that one. I the one that obviously you know which game I'm talking about. The one that kills me is the BYU one. I just think if Iowa State goes up and Rocco finds Soul in the back of the end zone because he was wide open and they go up 24-7, you definitely BYU definitely plays that game a whole lot differently. But I mean, like you said, well, like when we had our preview pod, you let BYU in the game long enough, and they'll take advantage.
Jimmy Rogers is now your new head coach, and you have a potential new starting quarterback in Jalen Raylor. What gives you hope when it comes to the new coach and the potential new QB and the potential players who are going to come in, and even some of the players who are sticking around?
So I like the pieces that we have. Keaton Roskup played H-back for us. He was one of the tight ends that stayed. Dominic Overby had a chance to be wide receiver one at some point. At one point in the season, he actually started in the Ireland games, catching a touchdown pass. And Aiden Flora, who was very, very active in special teams as a returner, and he could possibly be running back. Jalen Rayner, I like what he brings to the table. Considering that Iowa State has played him the last two seasons, and he gave us trouble. In Jonesboro. And with Tyler Rowe coming in, the tight ends coach from the Detroit Lions, he was the running backs coach in 2024. Not to mention that he was also the offensive. He was the offensive coordinator for Trey Lance during the 2019 season, and I was like, okay, I wonder what type of offense we're running, and I watched some tape of Trey Lance, and I'm really excited because I think this offense is going to be very run heavy, and I know we're getting a lot of guys right now. I mean, guys that right now as we speak from everywhere. I'm very very encouraged. I do think that Iowa State can be a bowl team, so I do have hope. And I do like one thing that uh, Coach Jimmy Rogers is doing is that he's building the offensive and defensive lines. So I'm very very encouraged by that. So we're gonna have to see. I'll have to probably come back on again once the roster is intact. But I'm feeling really good, Clem.
Of the guys that are sticking around, who's the guy that you're most excited to see next season playing for the Cyclones again?
Probably would have to say Aiden Flora. Aiden Flora, he showed just that punt return against TCU to win the game eventually, and then he had one earlier in the season against South Dakota. His just speed is absolutely insane, and I also would like to see Dom Overby get another shot. He had a case of the drops last year, but with another year comes a new opportunity, especially in this offense.
Right, Tyler. If people want to listen to your podcast, where can they find you?
All right, you guys. I am the host of the BELEAV in Iowa State podcast. We can be found on any podcast provider, so iHeartRadio, Spotify. We're also on YouTube as well. And if you are on TikTok or Twitch, we're on Twitch. We're at BELEAV in ISU 2025. And on TikTok, we're at BELEAV in Iowa State Pod.
And plus, you host a lot of live events on X, and so people can find you there too if they want to come and join the party, right?
Yes, sir.
Not only did we wrap up the football season with Tyler, but I chatted with Jamie Plunkett about the Horned Frogs 2025 football season. It just so happens that my conversation with him came right after Josh Hoover announced he was going to the Indiana Hoosiers. Jamie, when I type in TCU news, like if I just do a Google search, everything focuses on former Frogs QB Josh Hoover committing to Indiana. I know that must be disappointing to TCU fans, but on the other hand, they won the Alamo Bowl over USC. They finished the season 9-4. When you look back on the 2025 season, how are you going to remember it?
I think they're going to TCU fans look at it and say there was a missed opportunity. 9-4 is a good record. It's fine. It's back-to-back 9-win seasons for Sonny Dykes. He's got 36 wins in 4 years as the head coach. All of those are good numbers, right? But you held a 17-0 lead over Arizona State and wound up losing that football game. You held an 11-point lead over Iowa State in the fourth quarter at home, and you ended up losing that football game. You almost allowed Baylor to come back from 21 points down in the last 3 minutes. There were some things that happened late in ball games this year that really held TCU back. Those two losses to Arizona State and Iowa State, if you convert those to wins, you're talking about a team that played in Arlington this year rather than sitting in fifth or sixth in the league. And so I think there were some missed opportunities there. There were some frustrations with Josh this year at quarterback as well. His inability to protect the football at times. He threw a league high 13 interceptions this year. A lot of that had to do with TCU's inability to run the ball consistently. And so he's thrown it 45 to 50 times a football game. But I think the opportunity now for TCU coming off of this 2025 season is to say, we put two moderately successful years together back to back. What's it going to take to clean up some of these inconsistencies and mistakes to allow TCU to get back into that double-digit win, era like we saw for the last 20 years or so under Gary Patterson?
When I think of Sonny Dykes, I do think of a team that throws the ball around the field a lot. Now that Hoover is leaving, what kind of changes do we see coming to this team for the 2026 season?
Well, quite a bit, because not only is Josh gone, but offensive coordinator Kendall Briles left and is at South Carolina now. He was also the quarterback's coach, TCU's running backs coach, Jimmy Smith. Jimmy Young's an old TCU wide receiver. Jimmy Smith is headed to Georgia Tech in the same role. So there's a lot of turnover on the offensive side of the football, just not only from a player perspective, but from a staff perspective as well. So he brings in Gordon Samus, the offensive coordinator from UConn, who runs a more pro-style, balanced offense than the air raid that Sonny Dykes is known for. They just signed yesterday Harvard quarterback Jaden Craig, who is a more pro-style offense, was on some draft boards this year, is going to take a shot at playing football at the Power 4 level in 2026. And then they brought in a quarterback's coach in Brett Robbins, who was the offensive coordinator at Tulsa this past year. The running backs coach came with Samus from UConn as well, Antonio Wilcox. And so we're going to see, I think, a more balanced, structured pro-style offense from TCU in 2026, which is a departure from what Sonny Dykes has grown up with that kind of Mike Leach air raid system. And I think it's a signal of Sonny Dykes understanding that the game of football is evolving. Things are cyclical, right? And we're seeing, especially in the Big 12, running the football and playing good defense are becoming really important again. This isn't the air raid Big 12 from 10 years ago anymore. And so he's really trying to get TCU back to those roots again, running the football more consistently with guys like Jeremy Payne and John Denman, building a really tough defense at all three levels that can keep opponents under their scoring averages, and then just seeing how that works out when it comes to winning football games.
Okay, Jamie, I'm just going to admit I have a soft spot for teams that throw the ball, so I'm kind of
sure.
I'm going to miss the air raid a little bit.
Look, I mean, we all love it, right? It's watching Eric McAllister go out there and rack up 1,200 receiving yards. TCU's had fantastic outside wide receivers over the last 10, 12 years or so. I don't think it's going to fully go away. I don't think Sonny would ever just let it fully slip away from the air raid, but balance is a good thing. And with the way TCU's been unable to run the football consistently over the last 3 years, I think it'll be refreshing for TCU fans to see them kind of commit to that a little bit more.
Jamie, thanks a lot for joining us here on the Big Stories podcast. If people want to read or listen to you, where can they find your stuff?
So you can find all my written work over at hornfrogblitz.com. We're the TCU site for 24/7 sports. You can listen to my podcast, Frogs Insider, which is part of the Dave Campbell's podcast network, anywhere you get your podcasts. And then you can follow me on social media anywhere you want at Frog Preacher.
By the way, we will continue with our football season reviews with the rest of the teams in the coming weeks.
Number 2.
Bowled away. It was nice to see the Big 12 start strong during the bowl season, especially the Cougars of Houston and BYU coming back to beat their opponents late. Utah's victory over Nebraska was impressive. In fact, the league started out 4-0. Then they lost 3 straight games, including Cincinnati's humbling loss to Navy and SMU holding off Arizona. In the end, the league finished 4-3 in bowl games. Better than the SEC, but not as good as I think any of us hoped. I understand there were factors that led to each one of these wins and losses, but in the aggregate, it doesn't look good that the conference fell flat in 3 straight games. Speaking of falling flat,
Number 1.
Texas Tech falls flat. The Red Raiders were bowled right out of the college football playoff, getting blanked by Oregon in the Orange Bowl. Ugh. So many people on social media were eager to lay blame at the feet of the offense, and deservedly so. Others dunked on the Big 12's lone representative, and rightfully so. The Red Raiders should have been able to hang with the Ducks. The defense played great. The offense did not. I've been trying to find some sort of silver lining to the loss since this looked like the Big 12's best chance to advance in the college football playoff since TCU did it a few years ago. I can only really find one, and that is that the conference can produce a good team that can be highly ranked and considered a top 4 team in college football. Texas Tech has a really good team, or at least they did. And they should probably have one this next season too. And there are other programs out there that can also be good and possibly bring glory to the conference, but they're going to have to do something similar to what Tech did this past season. And if we want to see 2 teams get in, both teams are going to have to be near perfect, or they expand the playoff to 16 teams. My big fear is that everyone is going to judge the entire conference on one game. I mean, the conference is already being judged because it has no big-name brands like when they had Texas or Oklahoma. But there is no better time to show you don't have to be a big-name brand to be successful, and Texas Tech has paved the way. Get the right players in the right spot, and you can be successful. There is good football in the Big 12, but the teams in the conference need to play better if they want to be considered a viable top-tier conference year in and year out. So Big 12 teams, you got to step up.
The big stories, big man on campus.
Let's give it to UCF guard Riley Kugel, who hit some big shots in UCF's 81-75 win over Kansas. Kugel had 19 points in the victory, including a 3-point play with 10 seconds left to give the Knights the cushion they needed to seal the victory. Make sure you listen to this Thursday's edition of the podcast where we feature the 66-year-old grandma who is also part of Texas Tech's marching band. Not only did she fulfill a lifelong dream, but she's inspiring other people along the way. Hey, and make sure you subscribe to the Big Stories podcast so you don't miss an episode. I'm Cleon Wall, and Big Stories is a production of BYU Radio.